Thank you. Matt. You don't have any doubt that only one side did the shooting and the killing and the shelling and so on of these people, correct?
Saeed, I have seen reports I have seen different reports with respect to that very question.
Right.
We don't know, as I said earlier, the ground truth of what happened, which is why we think it's appropriate that investigation be conducted.
So you think that there were other people shooting Palestinians?
Saeed, I said I have seen reports that other people were shooting. I don't know the veracity of any of those reports, which is why we're seeking more information.
And you expect to get any results from these investigations, these reports?
We
Will
do.
you come back to us next week and tell us this is?
I can't promise you next week because I don't know how long an investigation will take. But hold on. Certainly, when an investigation is completed and we're briefed on that investigation, I'm happy to come brief you on that.
On the principle of it, why is it so difficult for this government to say we condemn the killing of children, Palestinian women and children? Why can't you say the word condemn?
We do. Saeed, if you listen to what I said a moment ago, hold on. Saeed, please don't interrupt me.
Yeah.
I said far too many Palestinians have died. Thousands of Palestinian children have died, and it is a tragedy when one of them dies. Of course, we don't want to see a single child die. We don't want to see anyone die as a result of this conflict, which is why we have been working to bring this conflict to a close as soon as possible. But whenever you ask me these questions, I do think you continue to kind of just elide over the fact that Hamas bears a great deal of responsibility for putting those children in harm's way. Remember, it was Hamas that launched this war in the first place with an attack on Israel that killed men, women, and children, and that Hamas that hid and continues to hide behind children as human shields. So yes, we do not want to see any child die. We don't want to see any innocent civilian die, which is why we are working so hard to try to achieve a temporary ceasefire that would alleviate their suffering.
Yet I have not heard the word condemn. I mean, this war began way before October 7. I mean, in fact, the reason that this administration was so strong on, pursuing a Middle East peace and so on, because the war has been going on for decades before and so on. We heard this administration when they came into office talking about reopening the consulate, talking about reopening the PLO office here, talking about restarting and reigniting peace talks and so on, re-aiding UNRWA and so on, simply because the war has been going on for a very long time. Because Gaza was under siege for a very, very long time.
Saeed, nothing that happened before October 7th justifies what Hamas did on that day. And it is what Hamas did on that day that led to the outbreak of this war and led to the suffering of so many innocent Palestinians. I just feel it's important to correct that fact.
That's fine. I mean, you guys said this many times before, but in fact, Israel has been waging war on Gaza for a very, very long time. Let me ask you on the aid issue, on the trucks and the trailers and so on. Is there anyone other than Israel that is holding the aid from going in?
It is not a question of aid going in. That's not the problem right now, Saeed. The problem is that when aid gets in, there's a distribution problem inside Gaza right now because there are police officers, some of whom are members of Hamas, who have been providing the security for those for that distribution inside Gaza. And what Israel says is that they have a legitimate right to go after members of Hamas. So we would obviously prefer to see members of a security force inside Gaza who are not Hamas members, but that's not where we are today. So it is a situation that we continue to try to work through.
So this is really the classic catch-22 kind of situation because Hamas governed Gaza for a very long time. All the police, all the many of the security forces and so on. Unless you supply Gaza with police and other staff people, whatever, who are from Egypt, from anywhere, to distribute these things, it's going to be the same people to distribute it.
As I said, it is
so this is really you're saying, okay, you can't, it's a catch-22 situation.
I don't think you're listening to what I said. What I said is we believe the way to ultimately solve this problem is to try to get a temporary ceasefire that would get hostages out and alleviate this problem and make it possible for aid to move around and get food in people's mouths so they're not so hungry and they're not so desperate that they're swarming the convoys that do come in.
Last question. One last question. Do you suspect that Mr. Netanyahu perhaps authorized this raid to scuttle the negotiations?
There is there is no evidence of that I have seen. Said, go ahead.
Thank you, Matt. You keep saying that you don't want to see any Palestinian civilians dead, and the number of civilians killed should be zero. But you saw the numbers, I'm sure you did today. They're staggering. There are 30,000 dead, 70,000 wounded, and 7,000 are missing. With due respect, Matt, many people in the Arab and Muslim world do not believe that this administration is sincere when they keep saying the same message that we don't want to see Palestinian dead, for many reasons. Number one, you supply Israel with lethal weapon with no conditions and no reviews, as much as we asked about it. And second is you shelter them in the Security Council, and you still sided with Israel that no ceasefire till now. You want a short pause, and it didn't work out. So how can you respond to people who criticize this administration that actually you're the one who's supporting the Israelis?
So I would turn it around with a question, not to you, because I know that's not the way this exchange is supposed to work, but to anyone that wants Israel to stop, just to stop the war unilaterally. What is their solution to the Hamas leadership that launched the attacks of October 7th and continue to be at large? What is their solution to the thousands of Hamas fighters who continue to be operating inside Gaza and continue to say that they are committed to the destruction of the state of Israel, to say that they continue to be committed to the intentional murder of Israeli civilians? So anyone that is asking the question about Israel and Israel's conduct in this campaign, which are fair questions, and that's why we stand up here and answer them, also needs to ask questions about Hamas's culpability and Hamas's side in that, because this is a difficult problem, and we continue to believe that Israel has a legitimate right to go after terrorists that are right across its borders, right in Gaza, that are committed to the destruction of the state of Israel and are committed to killing Israeli civilians. But we want them to do it in accordance with international humanitarian law, and it is important that they do that. Again, as I've said before, if Hamas came out and laid down arms, all of this could be over today. All of it, every bit of it.
The only difference is we are journalists covering the State Department, so.
That's why I made clear. That's why I made clear. I'm not asking the question to you. I'm very aware.
Other journalists will hold Hamas. But another question. Senator Kuhn said today that if Israel does not present a secure and credible plan to evacuate civilians, 1.5 million from Rafah, then he's willing to consider restriction on arms sales to Israel. And this is an advanced position from a senator that's very close to the Biden administration. So do you believe now you start losing the argument even in Congress? And do you support that at one stage that even this administration will impose arms restriction? I
think it's important that we take things one step at a time. And where we are today is that we have said we cannot support an operation in Rafah unless there is a credible and executable plan to deal with the more than 1 million civilians who are sheltering there. And we have not yet seen such a plan. We haven't been briefed on such a plan. And we can't support it until we see that plan. And so to speculate about what may happen down the road, I, of course, can't do. I can't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow, but I'll take it one step at a time and say right now there's not a plan in place that we have seen that we can endorse.